Today, we're going to talk about something incredible. It's a 24-year story of how one country was literally torn in two, giving birth to a brand new nation, Bangladesh. It is an absolutely powerful story about identity, resistance, and the real price of freedom. And that really brings us to the core question we're going to tackle today. How does a country, one that's supposed to be united by a shared faith, just completely break apart over things like language, money, and who people feel they are? It's a fascinating look at what holds a nation together and what can tear it apart. So let's dive right in. All right, so here's our roadmap. We're going to walk through 5 key stages. We'll start with the first fight, which was all about language. Then we'll look at the massive economic gap that grew between the two sides. From there, we'll see how that led to a powerful demand for self-rule, how a democratic vote shockingly turned into a war, and finally, how a new nation was born from the fight. Okay, Section 1. A nation divided by language. You know, the first cracks in this new union weren't about politics. They weren't about money. No, they were about something way more personal and fundamental, the words people actually spoke. So, picture this. In 1947, Pakistan is created. But it's in 2 separate pieces, East and West Pakistan, with over 1,000 miles of India sitting right in between them. The real problem, though? The ruling elite, who were all in West Pakistan, just decided that Urdu would be the only national language. This completely ignored the fact that most of the population who lived in the East spoke Bengali. Well, as you can imagine, this sparked what became known as the language movement. Protests just erupted. But the real turning point, the day everything changed, was February 21st, 1952. Police in Dhaka opened fire on student protesters. Their deaths created the first martyrs for the Bengali language and became this powerful rallying cry for a unique Bengali identity. Now, the government did eventually give in and recognize Bengali years later in 1956, but the damage was done. A deep, deep sense of betrayal had already taken root. And you know, this cultural fight was really just the beginning. That brings us to Section 2, the widening economic gap. That simmering resentment over language, it was about to be poured over with the gasoline of economic injustice. It became clear pretty fast that East Pakistan was being treated like a colony, exploited for the benefit of the West. Just look at this number. It tells you so much of the story. Out of 69 of the most powerful government jobs, only 3 were held by Bengalis. I mean, come on, this wasn't just a simple case of underrepresentation. This was a total systematic exclusion from any real power. And this chart right here, this shows you where the real muscle was. The military was the most powerful institution in the country, and it was almost entirely run by West Pakistanis. Punjabis and Pathans made up a whopping 95% of the armed forces. And the Bengalis, the majority of the country's population, a tiny, insignificant 5%. The economic story is, if anything, even worse. East Pakistan was the country's economic engine. Its jute exports generated a massive 60% of all the country's export income. But here's the kicker. The wealth only flowed one way. The East got back just a tiny fraction of the import budget and foreign aid. All its resources were being siphoned off to build up West Pakistan. So what happens when your culture is attacked and your economy is being drained dry? Well, that brings us to Section 3, the demand for autonomy. The people of East Pakistan realized they needed to demand not just fairness anymore, but actual control over their own future. And this is where the pivotal 6-point movement of 1966 comes in, led by the charismatic Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Now, this wasn't just some list of complaints. Oh no. This was a full-blown plan, a blueprint, for East Pakistan to have almost complete self-rule, all while technically staying within a loose Pakistani federation. And the demands were radical, for sure. They basically said, the central government in the West, you can handle defense and foreign policy. That's it. The East would get total economic independence, maybe even its own currency, and, crucially, the power to collect its own taxes. In short, they were demanding self-rule in everything but name. So how did the powerful establishment in West Pakistan react? Did they negotiate? Did they talk? Nope. They responded with force. They arrested Sheikh Mujib and 34 of his colleagues and charged them with treason in this big show trial. But this move backfired, big time. It just turned Mujib into an even bigger national hero and a symbol of Bengali resistance. Okay, Section 4, from ballot to battlefield. This is where the story really starts to accelerate. The people of East Pakistan decided to make one last, desperate attempt to get what they wanted peacefully, through a democratic election. But their victory at the ballot box was met with bullets and bayonets. So, in 1970, Pakistan holds its first ever general election, and the result was a political earthquake. Sheikh Mujib's party, the Awami League, won an unbelievable 167 out of 169 seats in East Pakistan. This landslide gave them an absolute majority in the National Assembly. They had won the democratic right to form the government for the entire country. But the military junta in the West had no intention of handing over power. Instead, behind closed doors, they planned this, Operation Searchlight, and it was exactly what it sounds like, a cold, calculated military plan to completely crush the Bengali movement. The plan was to arrest leaders, take over universities, seize police stations, cut all communication, and unleash absolute terror all at once across East Pakistan. And that brings us to our final dramatic section, Birth of a Nation. The refusal to honor that election and the launch of Operation Searchlight on the night of March 25, 1971, was the point of no return. It transformed a political struggle into a brutal, bloody war for independence. Right before he was arrested, as the military crackdown began, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman managed to get one last message out to his people. And this was it. The official Declaration of Independence. He told them, from today, Bangladesh is independent. And he urged them to fight on until the very last soldier of the occupation army was driven out. This message ignited the 9-month Liberation War. And don't think for a second that this was just some chaotic uprising. Not at all. As this map shows, the resistance was highly organized. A provisional government was formed, and they meticulously divided the entire country into 11 military sectors. They were ready to fight a coordinated guerrilla war against a much larger and much better equipped professional army. So after 9 long months of brutal fighting, the end came very, very quickly. In early December, a joint force of the Bengali freedom fighters, the Mukti Bahini, and the Indian Army launched a final all-out offensive. And within just 2 weeks, it was over. The Pakistani commander was begging for a ceasefire, which led directly to the final surrender. And this right here is the moment history was written. This is the actual instrument of surrender, signed on December 16, 1971. This one piece of paper officially ended the war and confirmed the birth of the independent nation of Bangladesh. So, from a battle over a few words to a full-scale war for liberation, through decades of economic exploitation, a stolen election, and unimaginable human sacrifice, that 24-year struggle finally came to an end. A new nation was born. And it really leaves us with a heavy question to think about, doesn't it? What does it actually take for an entire people to decide that their identity is no longer up for negotiation? And what, really, is the ultimate price of a nation's freedom?